Past all those city lights and skyscrapers, there's one heck of a gem of a waterfowl hunting location, and that's Long Island.
They work the tides here, so low tide right now, water should be coming back in. But we're gonna go try and get out and find water. Kill some birds.
They claim New Jersey is the largest, but I don't think that New Jersey is the largest. I think that Long Island, New York holds the largest population of brant.
Guy's gone 15 years without shooting a band and thought that that curse was going to follow him for the rest of his life, and being able to do it on a brant hunt was great. I didn't know what to expect going into a brant hunt out in New York. Glenn Geik, a very good friend of mine, we met a few years ago, invited us to come out there and do some brant hunting, and it's something we had never done before. It looked really cool. It's been a bird that's been on my list that I've wanted to kill, and I've wanted to experience that kind of hunt for a very long time. So to take that opportunity to go out there is something that we jumped on, and Blake and I headed out there to meet my brother Woody, and hopefully we were going to have a great couple of days trying to kill a few brant.
Our brant hunts took place in a tidal marsh, which was just inside the ocean. So not only did we see a ton of brant, but with the water and the marsh and vegetation everywhere, there's a ton of ducks around too.
Brant hunting compared to Canada hunting, aside from the fact that they're a goose and they kind of look like that when they're flying, it pretty much stops right there. When these brant come in and they come in and take one look at you and they go out and make a loop, and the second time they come at you, they want to come right in. There's no calling to it, there's no real science to it other than being in the right place at the right time and using that tide to your advantage to find that right place.
I'm Glenn Geik from Knock 'em Down Guide Service. We provide brant hunting and sea duck hunting at its finest. Brant eat kelp and seaweed and various things from the bottom, snails, things like that. We like to hunt our brant on the full of the tide, get the boats up against the bank as far as we can, set out as many decoys as we possibly can, usually from anywhere from 50 to 100 birds.
And right off the bat that first morning, Nate, one of the guys hunting with us, it's Glenn's friend, scored on a double banded brant, and that was one of more to come. Now there are two types of brant. There's a Pacific brant, which is also called a black brant, which is obviously on the west coast. But what we're hunting this week are the Atlantic brant. They're not quite as dark as the Pacific birds. Glenn and his client shoot a lot of bands. I think all of them have come from Nunavut, Canada, which is about 2,000 miles away. The area around Long Island is a major wintering ground for them. You see them on soccer fields, baseball fields, hanging out at the beach. There's a ton of them around. Typically they just eat aquatic food, but more recently they've started eating cereal grains and grasses, and some biologists think this is because the population is reaching the carrying capacity of the environment that they winter in. You see a white patch, or it's also sometimes called a necklace on some of them. This signifies maturity. The white patch means a bird has reached maturity. I think the bigger it is, the wider it is, the more mature the bird is. They'll also tend to take on a little darker appearance. And it's not very often that we hunt the same location 2 days in a row, but with the number of brant around and the tide being very similar to what it was the day before, it's bottoming out that morning, Glenn was confident that we'd have another good hunt, so we went right back into that same location for day 2.
They claim New Jersey is the largest, but I don't think that New Jersey is the largest. I think that Long Island, New York holds the largest population of brant. Best time, we usually open in November for 4 or 5 days, and then we open again in December, usually on a 31st. Well, this year at least was on a 31st, and then we have a 30-day season as of right now.
We had numerous times where we'd shoot a bird or two, and just a couple seconds later, out of the middle of nowhere, here comes another brant dive bombing the spread. It's a very fast-paced hunt. You have to stay ready, but you also have to be mindful that since it's only a 2-bird limit, you've got to pick your shots.
Living 14 hours apart from my brother and only getting to see him a few times a year, every time we have the chance to get together and hunt together, it's always going to be a good time, and getting him up there to go brant hunting with us was something that is going to be a memory to me for the rest of my life. And also getting to watch him shoot his first band was great. Guy's gone 15 years without shooting a band and thought that curse was going to follow him for the rest of his life, and being able to do it on a brant hunt was great.
Brant are a tough bird. They've got thick down just like a Canada goose does, despite their smaller size. You can knock one out of the air, it hits the water, you got to be ready for a follow-up shot or two. we also had a couple flocks where we'd shoot 1 or 2 birds out of it, they'd go out in front of us, they'd circle, they'd come right back in. Brant don't seem to learn from past experiences like ducks and honkers do, so shooting into a bigger flock is not as big of a deal as it is with mallards or geese. You know, we had birds land in the spread. We were waiting on the group that was behind them. We'd shoot into the group behind them, and those 1 or 2 birds that were sitting in the decoys would still be sitting there after the guns went off.
Glenn and Danny that run Knock 'em Down Guide Service out there in Long Island. It's a first-class operation. The equipment that these guys use is by far some of the safest equipment I've ever seen. The boats that they use and what these guys put into making sure that you have a good hunt, and what they put into making sure you have a safe hunt when you're hunting big water in the ocean like that is incredible to me. They put a lot of time and effort into it. They've spent a lot of money to make sure that their clients and us are, you know, their friends, that we have a memorable experience out there and have a good hunt.
Well, we had a couple times where a bird or 2 would land in the decoys and we'd shoot the 2 or 3 that were behind them, only to have the initial birds that landed to still be sitting there waiting for who knows what. And I can't regurgitate what I'm trying to talk.
Where do they spend their summers?
Up in the Nunavut, Canada area. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly.
And how do you know that?
Because our banded birds come from that Nunavut area.
And the banded birds are pretty prevalent, aren't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, we shot, what did we shoot this weekend? 3, 4?
3.
Three banded brant this weekend. It's phenomenal.
If I had to use one word to describe a brant, the word smart would not come to mind.
There's an Atlantic brant, which is also called the black brant, but what we're hunting this week are the Atlantic Pacific, West, East, mixed up.